Hangadam WAD.
West Africa Democracy Radio.
Je suis à Dakar, au Sénégal, et j'écoute la WADR 94.9 FM.
West Africa Democracy.
West Africa Democracy Radio.
We are West Africa Democracy Radio.
94.9 FM.
Dakar, Senegal. It's you speaking.
WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's May Day in Dakar, 1 o'clock in Lagos. Good afternoon, and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and worldwide at wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Ghana bids farewell to fallen heroes of August 6 helicopter crash. Malian government says it has fueled a coup ploy involving French national.
The transitional government informs the national public of arrest of a small group of French elements within the Malian Armed and Security Forces for criminal offences aimed at destabilizing the institutions of the republic.
Guinea's National Front for the Defense of the Constitution urges World Bank to halt the funding over rights abuses.
We believe the World Bank must be held to its ethical responsibilities and stopped from providing substantial financial support to the Guinean authorities, as this could enable the military to acquire lethal weapons to repress citizens.
The U.S. State Department report reveals Liberia's governance gains, but rights abuses remain. In response, the government says it's reviewing the findings and will address concerns where necessary. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Augustine Coley with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. We begin in Mali, where the government has shed new light on the recent arrests with the army. Earlier this month, several officers were detained with 10 accused of plotting to derail the country's political transition. In a statement broadcast on national television Thursday evening, authorities in Bamako said they had thwarted a coup attempt, alleging the plot was orchestrated by a French national linked to French intelligence. Mali's Minister of Security, Daou Alal Mohamedin, gave more details on the development.
The transitional government informs the national public of arrest of a small group of French elements within the Malian Armed and Security Forces for criminal offences aimed at destabilizing the institutions of the republic. At a time when the Malian nation, united in all its components, is mobilized to consolidate our regained sovereignty and eradicate the obscurantist terrorist forces of the Confederation of Sahel States, These soldiers and civilians, with the help of foreign states, sought to break the momentum of Mali's rebuilding process. Thanks to the professionalism and vigilance of specialized services, the plot was foiled, and the perpetrators were arrested on August 1, 2025. Among those apprehended is a French national, Vizier Yen, acting on behalf of French intelligence, who enlisted political leaders, civil society actors and members of the military, including Brigadier General Abbas Dembele and Nema Sagara. The transitional government, while condemning this subversive act, assures the public that judicial investigations are ongoing to identify any possible complices and that the armed and security forces remain committed to completing their mission to fight terrorism in all its forms. The government also reassures the public that the situation is fully under control and urges the population to remain calm yet vigilant in the face of desperate destabilization attempts, which will always fail, God willing.
Thus, the voice of Daou Ali Mohamedin, who is Mali's Minister of Security. Let's now take you to Guinea, where the National Front for the Defense of the Constitution, FNDC, is stepping up its criticism of the ruling junta. In a letter to the World Bank Group, President Aji Banka, the citizens' movement called for the immediate suspension of all funding on the military authorities. It cited what it describes as a serious human rights violations, including the forced disappearances of Umar Sila, also known as Fonike Mengi, Mamadou Biloba, and investigative journalist Habib Maroum Kamara. Imo Edit has the details.
In its correspondence, the FNDC urged the World Bank not to be complicit in human rights abuses in Guinea and outlined what it says are numerous violations committed by the military leadership. Alseni Farinta Kamara is the FNDC's head of operations. The FNDC is calling on the World Bank to suspend all financing to the Guinean government. The movement denounced the $100 million the institution is reportedly preparing to release for Guinea, arguing that this comes as the government takes actions that run counter to the values the World Bank defends. Alseni Farinta Kamara again speaks. A Guinean economy says the FNDC's appeal to the World Bank has little chance of succeeding. According to the finance expert, the logic of international cooperation and financing is not based solely on political criteria.
Imo Edit with that report, and there are more to come from Guinea regarding the ongoing situation. Let's now travel to Benin regarding matters relating to diplomacy and trade, as the country's foreign ministry has announced the steps to safeguarding its nationals in Gabon's Lambaréné province following reports of intimidation linked to the allocation of market spaces. The move comes amid new restrictions on certain economic activities carried out by foreigners in the Central African country. Sankule Janko reports.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Benin has expressed a concern over threats and acts of intimidation targeting members of the Beninese community in Lambaréné, Gabon. The tensions reportedly stem from disputes over the allocation of market spaces in the context of fresh restrictions on foreign-run economic activities. In a statement on Thursday, the ministry reaffirmed its commitment to ensuring the safety and rights of Beninese citizens abroad. It urged calm and restraint while reminding its nationals of the importance of respecting the laws and regulations of the host country. Cotonou says it is working closely with Gabonese authorities and will in the coming days deploy a mission to identify and register Beninese citizens who may wish to return home voluntarily. While stressing its respect for the sovereignty of every state, Benin reaffirmed its adherence to Pan-Africanism and African solidarity, noting that every African should be able to feel at home anywhere on the continent.
Sankule Janko fight that report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Let's now take you to Ghana, where the Black Star Square in Accra is dropped in solemnity as the nation comes together to bid a final farewell to the 8 Ghanaians who perished in the August 6 military helicopter crash. The state burial, marked by deep emotions and national pride, has drawn a large crowd of mourners, including top government officials, members of parliament, military chiefs, religious leaders, and diplomats. Family members, friends, and well-wishers have filled the ceremonial grounds, paying their last respects to the fallen heroes whose services and sacrifices have left an indelible mark on the country. The coffins dropped in the national flag are linked in state as military pallbearers stand guard. The late Defense Minister, Dr. Usman Boyman, was among 8 Ghanaians who lost their lives in the helicopter crash, along with Minister for the Environment, Dr. Ibrahim Mutala Mohammed, former parliamentary candidate Samuel Abuaje. Others are NDC Vice Chairman Samuel Sapon, Acting Deputy National Security Coordinator Alhaji Lamin Morin, among other issues. Here is Ghana's Speaker of Parliament, Aban Bagbain, speaking while paying tribute at the time of this newscast.
Alhaji Muniru Mohammed Limuna, Dr. Samuel Sapon, Mr. Samuel Abuaje, Squadron Leader Peter Bafemi Anala, Flying Officer Manim Chum Ampedu, and Sergeant Enes Ado Mensah. These gallant men were the very embodiment of Ghana's highest aspirations. They were the loving hands that cradled children, the wise voices that guided families, the charitable hands that fed families and whole communities, the compassionate hearts that uplifted our dear country. Just days ago, many of these fallen heroes stood among us, united in grief as we bid farewell to our dear friends and comrades, Kobina Adekoka and Sampi Yale. Like us, these fallen heroes came to honor the memory of their compatriots and to say goodbye to comrades they cherished. None of them imagined then that their end would follow hard on the heels of Adekoka and Sam Yale. This cruel twist of fate has left me heartbroken.
Aban Bagbain is the Speaker of Ghana's Parliament. Now, on human rights issues, Gambian police have charged 3 women in connection with the death of a 1-month-old girl who underwent female genital mutilation, despite the practice being banned under the 2015 Women's Amendment Act. One suspect faces life imprisonment and has been remanded in custody while 2 alleged accomplices were released on bail. The case has sparked widespread outrage, with the National Human Rights Commission describing it as a national wake-up call and stressing that FGM is not a cultural practice but a criminal offense endangering the lives of infants in the country. Elsewhere in Liberia, the U.S. State Department's 2024 Human Rights Report says Liberia has made strides in governance reforms but continues to face serious abuses, including arbitrary killings, torture, and curbs on media freedoms. Released this week, the report commends democratic progress more than 2 decades after the Civil War, yet warns that weak institutions and security sector failings still threaten to undermine the country's hard-won gains. Let's hear more from Abraham Parker, our correspondent in Monrovia.
This year's U.S. Human Rights Report on Liberia notes governance reforms in public administration, anti-corruption, and public procurement, but flags political interference in the judiciary, limited media diversity, and uneven local reforms. It highlights better training and oversight in security agencies, but cites excessive force, arbitrary arrest, and weak accountability. While civil liabilities are generally upheld, the report points to censorship and occasional harassment of civil society. Deputy Information Minister for Public Affairs, Daniel Saino, says the president is reviewing the findings and will address concerns where necessary.
President Wadr expressed his government commitment to upholding the Constitution of Liberia and ensuring the protection and promotion of human rights. The president has directed the Ministry of Justice, the Independent National Commission on Human Rights, to undertake a review of the report's findings.
The report also targeted individuals within the government, including Presidential Press Secretary Kula Fofana, who was accused of media censorship. Fofana has since responded to the report.
Office of the Press Secretary has taken note of the observations contained in the U.S. Department of State's 2024 Human Rights Report. We value constructive feedback from international partners in which to provide clarity.
Some opposition figures, including Akara's Mose Gray, a strong critic of the Bouakar's government, says the 2024 Global Human Rights Report on Liberia is damaging.
The report is damaging. The report said unlawful killing. When we told you during the Capitol building saga, people that were being arrested were being tortured, the report has validated.
Liberians are pushing for hopeful steps in governance and anti-corruption, with some reminding the government of its promises on human rights protection. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
You are listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Ghana bids farewell to fallen heroes of August 6 helicopter crash. Malian government says it has foiled a coup plot involving French national. Guinea's National Front for the Defense of the Constitution urges World Bank to halt funding over rights abuses. U.S. State Department report reveals Liberia's governance gains, but rights abuses remain. In response, the government says it's reviewing the findings and will address concerns where necessary. Still ahead, we also have a guest interview and a sports update. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
We are streaming live on YouTube at WADR and on Facebook, WADR English Service. Let's now head to Nigeria, where the head of the World Trade Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, is urging Nigeria's government to cushion the economic pains of its reform programs with targeted social safety networks. Speaking at the meeting with President Bola Tinubu in Abuja on Thursday, the former finance minister welcomed the administration's policies but warned that the poorest Nigerians need urgent support to cope with the rising costs. Our correspondent in Nigeria, Usma Umar, reports.
Since taking office in May 2023, President Tinubu has pursued one of Nigeria's most ambitious reform agendas in scrapping the decades-long petrol subsidy and unifying the country's multiple foreign exchange windows. The government says these moves have stabilized the macroeconomy and sent positive signal to global markets. But for millions of ordinary Nigerians, the impact has been punishing. Food prices have more than doubled, the naira has slid sharply, and the cost of transport and housing has soared. It is against this backdrop that WTO chief Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala visited the presidential villa just 2 weeks before she begins a second term leading the global trade body. She praised the reforms as necessary to restore stability, but said growth must now be the priority and that the most vulnerable need protection.
We think that the president and his team have worked hard to stabilize the economy, and you cannot really improve an economy unless it's stable. He has to be given the credit for the stability of the economy. What is needed next is growth, and we need to put in social safety nets so that people who are feeling the pinch of the reforms can also have some support to be able to weather the hardship.
During the visit, Okonjo-Iweala, alongside Nigeria's Trade Minister launched a Women's Exporters Fund for the Digital Economy, an initiative jointly run with the World Trade Organization. Nigeria was one of the only 4 countries selected globally, with over 67,000 women applying. 146 will now receive direct financial and technical support to grow their businesses. For a government under pressure over rising living costs, initiatives like this may not solve the hardship crisis, but they underscore the growing call from both local and global voices for a reform plan that stabilizes the economy and shields its most vulnerable citizens. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
This segment of Newslink takes us to Liberia, where the U.S. State Department's 2024 Human Rights Report says the country has made strides in governance reforms, but continues to face serious abuses, including arbitrary killings, torture, and curbs on media freedom. Released this week, the report commends democratic progress more than 2 decades after the Civil War, yet warns that weak institutions and security sector failing still threaten to undermine the country's progress. Our guest is Anderson Miame, Executive Director of the Center for Transparency and Accountability in Liberia, CENTAL, who speaks about the impact of these human rights violations on citizens.
We're concerned about these developments because they border on human rights and they basically do not entirely augur well for the country. We must have a reputation for fulfilling the rights of people, for protecting human rights, for playing by the rules or governing by the rules. So if reports continue to come out to point to SSAs being committed by the government or different state actors in terms of violating the rights of people, arbitrary arrests, for example, we still have the issue of rape. There's mob violence going on in the country still. These things undermine the reputation of the country, and we need to do more. The government has to do more to address these issues so that our reputation as a country, when it comes to human rights, protection of the rights of the people, can be up there on par with some of the countries that are doing very well in this light.
The report maintains that there was no significant changes in the human rights situation in Liberia. What does this mean in terms of changes of governments and meeting the expectations of voters or the citizens when it comes to addressing issues of human rights violations in the country?
It means that we need to actually move away from business as usual. The current administration indicated to the public that it would have done things differently. Gone would be the days when corruption would take place, when people would go to jail without, going through the requisite processes. That rape and some of the other violent situations will be committed and people wouldn't be prosecuted. We still see these things happening. So it's not a good sign in terms of, the commitments that have been made by the government and the extent to which they are playing by the rules and adhering to the different terms and conditions of the social contract that they have signed with the government. So the people of Liberia have an implied contract with the government, having voted this administration to ensure that they do those things that will address human rights situations in the country. Often than that, when we talk about human rights, there's a tendency for focus to be on violence, for example, or physical violence. Human rights is far beyond that. Economic violence is one of the key things that has been hurting African countries, especially Liberia. Resource-rich countries like Liberia do not benefit substantively from their resources because of economic violence that are perpetrated by state actors and some of their collaborators in the private sector. So these are all issues that we need to address, the government needs to address to ensure that the rights of people are fully protected, whether you're talking about social rights, economic rights, cultural rights, and all the other dimensions of rights that we can talk about.
with the continuous emergence or the continuous human rights violations that occurred in the country from one government to the other, does it suggest that there will not be any efforts or there will not be any positive results in addressing human rights issues in the country, no matter the change of government, from a civil society angle?
No. I don't think so. We're engaging. We continue to do a lot to engage around these issues. While it's true that we continue to see a semblance of violence being perpetrated at different level, economic violence, that what I talked about. We see issues around police brutality. At some point, we believe that changes can be made. We can improve upon these different schools. We have been improving, for example, on the corruption perception index of Transparency International and some of the other governing schools. Marginal improvements. We need to scale that up and ensure that we mainstream it across all the different sectors. So we're optimistic that things will improve, but the point to make is that at the moment, the government is not doing enough to dramatically move away from what has been obtained in the past, evident by the report that has come up. And what we're seeing is that as much as we're positive, as much as civil society is willing to engage with the government, to collaborate with government, international partners, citizens, to ensure that we deal with these issues, the government of Liberia has the foremost responsibility to tackle issues of human rights, and they need to do that with showing more commitment in terms of actions than some of the rhetoric that we're seeing over time.
Anderson Miame is the Executive Director of the Center for Transparency and Accountability in Liberia, Senegal. Now here comes Sankule, the sportive Janko, with the latest in the world of sports. Good afternoon, Sankule.
Yes, good afternoon. Let's get straight to business because two-time champions DR Congo moved closer to CHAN 2024 quarterfinals with a 2-0 win over Angola on Thursday night at Nairobi Moyo International Sports Center. Second half goals from Joseph Kotambala and Jonathan Mokonzi secured victory, keeping DR Congo in strong contention in Group A. Earlier, Morocco beat Zambia 3-1, setting up a decisive clash between DR Congo and Morocco on Sunday. Angola exit the tournament without scoring a goal, would you believe? In today's fixtures, meanwhile, Guinea faced a must-win clash against Algeria at Kampala's Mandela National Stadium on Friday at 1700 hours local time. While Guinea fights to stay in CHAN 2024, Algeria can secure an early quarterfinal spot and assert their dominance. Meanwhile, Niger will take on South Africa. Augustine, let's move on sports stories beyond ourselves, because the wait is over. The English Premier League is back with a bang. And what a curtain raiser it was. Crystal Palace, who stunned Liverpool, clutching the Community Shield on penalties after a thrilling 2-2 draw in the regulation time. It's not just England. Europe's biggest leagues are back in action this weekend, of course, beginning today. In Spain, all eyes are on Barcelona as they kick off their title defense, but Real Madrid and Atletico are ready to pounce. Over in Italy, the Serie A promises a firework, and PSG will hope to continue their dominance in France football.
So far, it's a firing weekend.
It's a firing weekend.
Thank you, Sankule.
It starts today.
Thank you, Sankule, for the latest in the world of sports. And that brings us to the end of this edition of Newslink here in West Africa, Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Sheikh Njai for the technical assistance. I am Augustine Curley. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Nibe County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Gulf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.